This manga has been releasing chapters for almost 50 years, and it shows no signs of stopping. How can a series with a single storyline last for such an absurd amount of time? Manga artists are notorious for having never-ending series that seem to last forever. So what does that mean for these unfinished manga which have no ending in sight? One Piece is one of the greatest manga of all time, yet it has this asterisk for supposedly being too long, running for over 25 years and releasing more than 1,100 chapters up to this point. Oda has even come out and said that One Piece was originally intended to last for only 5 years, but now it has lasted over 5 times as long. Hajime no Ippo is also considered a classic in the manga community, and it's been running for over 34 years with more than 1,400 chapters. The creator, George Morikawa, even came out and said that the ending for the series had already been decided, but is not sure when that ending will take place. And these are just some of the few series that are still releasing weekly. There's hundreds, maybe even thousands more that have been sitting on hiatus for weeks, months, and even years in some extreme cases. So to create this video, I painstakingly researched some of the longest running manga of all time to discover how they've withstood the test of time, all the while determining the factors leading to both indefinite hiatuses and long-deserved endings. But there's one manga in particular that stood out from the rest, and may never, ever see a conclusion. Imagine you're a kid in 1976 and you've just read the first chapter of Glass Mask. It's awesome, a fantastic new manga, and you're feeling stoked that you have a new manga to read from beginning to end. Fast forward almost 50 years, and suddenly you've got a long-term partner, kids, and are on the brink of retirement when you suddenly remember that manga from your childhood, Glass Mask, and wonder how it ended, only to find out that the series is still ongoing to this day in 2024. This is a graph to chart the length of some of the longest popular manga. At the bottom you have recent series like Jujutsu Kaisen, My Hero Academia, and Black Clover, which have been serializing for quite some time by normal standards. As you move along up, you'll encounter some of the greats, who reigned over the manga industry for years, as some of the longest and greatest series out there. Manga like Naruto, Bleach, and Vinland Saga. Up at the top are the aforementioned One Piece and Hajime no Ippo, along with the hiatus-ridden Berserk. Rest in peace, Kentaro Miura. And all the way up here is Glass Mask, starting 13 years earlier than Berserk in 1976. It's currently the second highest selling shoujo manga of all time, and also one of the longest. Most unfortunately for me, it's one of my favorite manga, and it has no end in sight. Let's delve into why Glass Mask has lasted so long, and how it's continued to see such incredible success. Glass Mask, or Glass no Kame, is a shoujo manga written by Suzue Miyuchi that follows the good-for-nothing girl Maya Kitajima, whose only talent lies in acting. This talent leads her to be discovered by Chigusa Tsukikage, a talented actress who performed and owned the rights to the famous play The Crimson Goddess. Considered a legendary play, The Crimson Goddess attracts the attention of many, including Masumi Hayami, a heartless wealthy businessman aiming to take the play rights for his own benefit. It also attracts the attention of rival Ayumi Himekawa, a beautiful actress with golden boy energy. Sound cliche? Well, yeah, it's a typical melodramatic shoujo manga, so predictable that it hurts. And I love it. Despite my video bashing generic shoujo manga, I have a level of respect for older manga that laid the foundation for these tropes. It's not really generic if it did it first, right? Glass Mask is largely defined by its excellent cast of characters. The dynamic between Maya and Ayumi is perfect, and it's the selling point of the series. It's your classic David vs. Goliath, as both characters have what the other lacks, all the while being jealous of each other's talent. Maya has otherworldly aptitude and talent for acting, while Ayumi has superior skills that are unmatched by anyone else. While battling for the role of the Crimson Goddess, they feel inferior to each other while still trying to surpass one another. Essentially, they lay on two sides of the same coin. For both of them, life is acting. It almost has an Ashita no Joe feel to it at times, and we're looking at people who are truly dedicated to their craft and live for a singular ideal. However, it doesn't have the same dark and depressing tone as Joe's tale, and feels a lot more like a shoujo in a forgiving sense. But Glass Mask isn't a storytelling epic like One Piece or Berserk. It's a simpler manga grounded in reality and the lives of these two girls. So why has it been running for such a ridiculous amount of time? This is a chart of Glass Mask's release schedule since 1976. The green shows the weeks it was released on schedule, and the red when it went on hiatus. And as you can clearly see, there's a lot more red than green. In fact, Glass Mask is only 49 volumes long, less than half the length of One Piece, which has been serialized for only half the time. Thank you to Lotus no Densetsu on Reddit for compiling this extensive chart of Glass Mask's chapter release schedule that I referenced for this video. But let me condense this into a more digestible format. Glass Mask was released in a magazine called Hana to Yume, or Flowers and Dreams in English. Strangely enough, it's a semi-monthly magazine rather than a standard weekly, bi-weekly, or monthly release, meaning in this case a new issue came out on the 5th and the 20th of each month. Why specifically the 5th and the 20th? Honestly, I have no idea. Let me know in the comments if you understood the significance of those days. With that in mind, Glass Mask could only be released a maximum of 24 times per year. Without accounting for the occasional break or other issues that may arise, let's come back to our chart of Glass Mask's release schedule and try to figure out why there's so much red. There are two different types of hiatuses. A definite hiatus, which the author plans to take a shorter break and will set a date to start publishing the manga again. Think of One Piece taking a month-long break during the time skip for Oda to go on vacation with his family. And secondly, there's the indefinite hiatus, where there's no set date for the series to return. Think of a series like Hunter x Hunter or Nana, who spent years and years without the release of a single chapter. So these smaller bits of red between the green are definite hiatuses, and the larger clumps are indefinite hiatuses. Before the 21st century, most of the definite hiatuses were pretty standard for any mangaka not named Ichiro Oda. It's overwhelmingly difficult to consistently draw chapters for 20 years straight, and most people get burnt out, hurt, or have other mental or physical issues. But in 1998, Glass Mask began an indefinite hiatus that lasted about 10 years. Why? I couldn't find any concrete details on the English web, but I did see multiple forum posts saying that the author Suzue Miyuchi started a cult, which isn't totally unheard of for mangaka like with the author of the series Aim for the Ace. But it is still pretty unlikely. The most information I could find was that she spearheaded a group called ON Network, whose goal was to seriously explore a spiritual world. Yeah, it's kinda ridiculous. None of this is confirmed, so it could be a false information on the internet, so take what I say with a grain of salt. In 2008, Glass Mask made a brief stint in a sister magazine called Besatsu Hana to Yume, all the way until 2012 before again going on hiatus indefinitely, and we still haven't seen a chapter since. Extrapolating from this data, we can pound some numbers and come up with what I like to call a hiatus rate. Basically, what percentage of time the series has been on hiatus versus when it's been releasing at its normal schedule. As an example, Berserk, one of the greatest manga of all time and known extensively for its hiatuses, has a hiatus rate of 37.5%, unfortunately due to the author's health issues. Again, rest in peace, Kentaro Miura. And Hunter x Hunter, the most famous hiatus-ridden series of all time, has a rate of 67%. 2/3 of the time it's supposed to have released a chapter, it hasn't, much to the dismay of its fans. But it's still not as high as Glass Mask's ridiculous hiatus rate of 72%. Fans like myself have little hope of return, but maybe one day the series will reach a conclusion. The latest news came back in 2018 from Suzue Miyuchi's official Twitter, where she confirmed she will continue drawing Glass Mask until the final volume. But it's been 6 years since, and nothing of the sort has come to fruition, so all we can do is keep on waiting. So, Glass Mask is unfinished, but at least it has hope, right? The author mentioned on multiple occasions that she intends to finish the series one way or another, despite rumors of her creating a cult. But what about some less fortunate manga that will certainly never see an ending? The most recent example is the controversy surrounding a manga called Act Age. In 2019, it was viewed as one of the most promising new generation manga, standing with the likes of Chainsaw Man and Jujutsu Kaisen. It was unique, gripping, and surprisingly complex for being a shonen. Like Glass Mask, it followed a young actor, Kei Yonagi, who's desperate for a new role to provide for her family. The problem? The author and storyteller is a disgusting pervert and a terrible person. I'm not going to say what he did, but it's all over the internet if you really want to know. Nevertheless, Act Age was abruptly cancelled, leaving the innocent artist and illustrator Shiro Usazaki just out to dry. Even more depressing are the series where the author suffers a tragic death before the manga reaches completion. The most obvious is Berserk, but it's been covered to death on YouTube by bigger fans of the series than me. High School of the Dead went on a pretty big run in the early 2010s for its bouncy anime adaptation, but was cancelled in 2017 when the author passed away from complicated health problems. But the most tragic cancelled manga of all time belongs to the greatest mangaka of all time, Osamu Tezuka. He's known across Japan as the father of all manga, and as the greatest. He's the pioneer of the medium, creating numerous manga that would define the field in moods, style, and artistry, while works like Astro Boy, Kimba the White Lion, and Blackjack would become his most well-recognized achievements. It is Phoenix that would soar above the rest and represent his life's work. Phoenix is an anthology series spanning 12 different volumes with each telling a different story. The manga ran from 1954 to 1988, with Tezuka saying that he worked on the series every single day of his life. Each volume captures a different era of Tezuka's greatness. The early ones showcase his simplicity and effortless perfection in storytelling, while the later volumes put on display his experimentative style of manga and its themes. Set in the massive time frame of 3rd century AD, all the way to the 35th century, the story consists of self-contained events in different periods of time, all of which revolve around the legendary immortal Phoenix, a bird whose blood grants immortality. Several characters in any given story attempt to obtain the blood to escape the endless cycle of life and death for a multitude of different reasons. The series battles with themes of life and death, the consequences and loneliness of immortality, and everything in between about the human condition. Because each volume takes place in a completely different era, Tezuka is able to flex his mastery of different genres like horror, sci-fi, mystery, and romance. I can't stress this enough, but it is the definition of a masterpiece that shows everything manga has to offer as a medium, which makes it all the more depressing that it will never see an ending due to his death in 1988. Despite the fact most of the stories are self-contained, so Phoenix can still be enjoyed and appreciated for what it is. Luckily for us, alongside the hopeless cases of manga that will never see an ending, there are an equal number of series that have reached their long-anticipated conclusions. Naruto and Bleach both saw their respective endings in the 2010s after successful runs of 72 and 74 volumes respectively. While many believe that both manga saw a severe decline in quality in the later years, fans can be happy with the proper conclusion. Maybe not with the sequels, but that's a different video. Gintama and Haikyuu also concluded a few years ago after equally incredible runs in the tough landscape of shonen magazines, but perhaps the most impressive of all comes from the series Dokaben, which totaled 205 volumes and lasted from an incredulous 1972 to 2018. I would love to give more details about the series, but Dokaben, along with several other long-concluded manga, haven't been translated into English at all, meaning it's incredibly difficult to find factual information about their conclusions. Nevertheless, Dokaben proves that it is possible for a long-running manga to see an ending, even if it is 56 years later. But what if I told you there was one final manga? One that started before Glass Mask, is longer than Dokaben, has almost never been on hiatus, and is still ongoing to this day. Golgo 13 is a manga that holds nearly every length record in existence. It boasts an astounding 210 volumes with over 650 currently released chapters. To put it in perspective, One Piece is 107 volumes, while Hajime no Ippo is 139, resting Golgo 13 as the king of long manga. On top of this, the series started back in 1968, 8 years earlier than Glass Mask, and over 64 years ago from the present day. The most ridiculous part? It's only been on hiatus for one of the total 768 months it's been around for. That's a hiatus rate of 0.001%, a wild statistic for something lasting this long. Golgo 13 was originally written and illustrated by Takao Saito, and was published in Shogakukan's seinen magazine Big Comic in October of 1968. Saito continued to be the author of the series until his untimely death at the age of 84 back in 2021. Amazingly, at his request, the manga is still being published by his assistants and remains ongoing to this day. The manga follows the story of a nameless professional assassin who carries out his duties with honor and his own personal code. The chapters are episodic in nature, typically featuring an assassination request on his behalf. I can't give much of an intensive review because I've only read the first volume. Despite being the longest running manga of all time, and a pretty famous one to boot, I couldn't bring myself to enjoy it at all. It doesn't help that it's pretty hard to access in English, and you can't really find too much of the chapters online. The art and plot are also pretty dated, and I'm not too keen on episodic stories in general. Nevertheless, the series is regarded very highly by manga fans out east in Japan. In an interview with Saito in 2013, he claimed that the manga continued so long that it is no longer property of the author. It belongs to the readers. Golgo 13 succeeds as a cultural sensation because it reflects the values of Japanese society. The tale is a modern-day samurai story, the protagonist serving the role of the honorable warrior with his own personal code, and that's how it's truly withstood the test of time. We've explored some of the longest-running manga of all time, lasting decades upon decades with no ending in sight. And along the way, we've delved into what makes these stories some of the greats, and how they've managed to be so successful. So at the end of the day, how much does getting an ending really matter if the journey along the way is so magnificent?